and welcome. Today I'm going to be having a quick look at this new watercolour block that I bought this week. I'd run out of one or two things, so I put an order in from Great Art and I saw that this one was in the sale, so I thought I would give it a go. I use the same paper all the time for my work. I use a Saunders Waterford paper, but I thought I would just try something different as it was in the sale. So it was only £4.95, I think down to £4.50 or something like that, and it's a Fabriano one, and let me have a look. So it's £140, and it's only, as you can see, it's only a small one, so it's about an A5 size. So first of all, we better have a look, get it out. So you need some scissors. So when you're taking this shrink wrapping off, always be careful that you don't damage whatever it is that you're undoing. And I should have said that this one is cold press, because I usually, well, very often, I'll just chuck that down there, work with a hot press one. The Saunders one that I get is a hot press one, so this is cold press, but again it says on there, and there's 12 sheets. So we'll have a look. So as you can see, it's not as smooth as the one that I usually work with. I'll just bend that back, but nicely gummed all the way around. Oh, it's not gummed all the way around. Ah, see, that's, it said on it block, and it actually says on the invoice here, it says block, but to me that isn't a block because it's only gummed at one side, it's not gummed all the way around. So that's to set off with. We're going to have to get something to fasten it down. So sometimes you'll see that I fasten it down with bulldog clips, but I'm actually going to use some masking tape. So all I do when I use the masking tape is I carefully put it along one edge and then over and round, and that's sort of making it into a block. But I'm a bit disappointed about that, because they shouldn't have written that it was a block when it clearly isn't. It's a pad. You know, it's only gummed on that one side. I don't think they should say, and it clearly says there block. Let's see what it says on the front. Doesn't say anything, just cold pressed, 140. Yeah, acid free. So I'm sure it's a nice paper, but like I say, that really isn't clear that it's not a block. So I also, as you can see, I bought a few other things, but I also bought this week a new spray bottle, because my other one I'd had for years and it had you know, gone as it wasn't spraying nice and evenly, because you want a nice even spray. So I bought this one and I just had a quick squirt with it, and it is a nice fine mist. I think that was a £2.75, something like that, and as you can see, it's quite a nice big one as well, so you don't have to keep refilling it. So I've just got this picture from Pixabay of some rather atmospheric trees, some lovely curves and curls, and a lot of colour in the centre in this bark. I'll try and find the picture and put the link down below to that. But all I was going to do was going to mix some watercolour and you know, have a quick look at this, do a little small drawing of one of these trees in the centre here. So sorry about that, I just had to pause there because I'd forgotten to get my water. I've been off for a few days. I've actually been decorating my bedroom, so I took a few days off. So it's my first day back drawing today, drawing and painting today, so I might be a bit rusty, but my brain's not quite with it. I had forgotten my water there. So with the mister, the other thing that's good about having a mister, I'll just take the cap off, is because I've not used these for a few days, they're quite dry. This is one of the new colours I've just filled that one up. That's a cadmium red that I'd run out of. But the ones that are really dry, when you're first starting working with them, when you haven't worked with them for a while, give them a mist, and it makes it much easier to pick the colour up. Sorry about the noise. So let's have a look at some colours. So we want to get some nice bright colours in this tree. Not necessarily going to do it just as it is colour wise. I think we'll go for some gamboge. Pop that down over there. Quite thick as well, not too much water. Nice bright colours. So some gamboge, and I think we'll use some of the cadmium orange as well. Let's go quite bright with this one. Just a little bit to set off with. And some of the green, the sap green. need a brown as well. I think we'll just go for some burnt sienna at the moment. Actually, keep it some nice bright red and orange colour into it. We can get some more colours as we go along, but these will do to begin with, and I might actually use them quite strong out straight out of the pan as well. So what I thought I would do was use a few different watercolour techniques on this pad over the next few videos, to, you know, some wet in wet and some wet in dry, and maybe some brusho and mixed media and different things, just to see how the paper is with different media. But we'll need to tape it down, because it is £140. I wouldn't buy anything less than £140 in weight. So you know, this is the least I would buy. I did get that one that was £100 a while back, you might remember, and it wasn't great. It's okay for practicing on, but even so, it's not the most enjoyable paper to work with, the one that was 100. So to begin with, I'm just going to do a very quick sketch of the basic tree shape, and I think I'll just take this tree and forget about the background at the moment, and I'll put it more centrally. And it's got a very wide base and a very chunky trunk, and then it very quickly goes out into these lovely sweeping branches. So at this stage, don't if you start trying to do every single one of these branches, we're just doing a little practice and having a play with these colours and seeing how the paper goes. So if we started trying to do all of these exactly as they were, we would be here all day with it. So just to do it quite quickly, just get an essence of where the branches are going and the general shapes. Don't fiddle about too much, otherwise, like I say, it would take us all day. And that's fine if you want to do a really detailed drawing from this photograph, because it is a fantastic photograph. So if you've got the time, have a go at that. So see, this branch coming down here almost touches the ground. It's a beautiful tree, absolutely gorgeous. Some of these branch shapes carry on down. I don't know if you can see, they're sort of twisted into the trunk shape there. And some nice twisty bits at the bottom where the roots are. So you can't really tell where the branches stop and the roots start. It's all sort of intertwined. And got some that are going off in all directions, and curly ones. And right off the page as well. The thinner ones behind, we don't need to put those all in with a pencil. This pencil's just giving us an idea of the form to begin with. We can come back and put more in with our brush later. So what I'm going to do, rather than wet the paper with the brush, because I've got my new sprayer, I'm just going to spray it. So we'll have some areas that are wetter than others, and that'll give us, might give us some interesting shapes and things. So I'm just going to use the one brush for the whole thing. So this one is a number 4, and it's from the SAA, which stands for the Society for All Artists, which is a UK, well, it's for art groups and things really, but again, I'll put the link to the SAA website in the description below if you haven't heard of those. And they do sell on Amazon as well, so I think you can get SAA products in America if you're in America. So if we look at the picture, I mean, I'm not going to stick true to the picture, I'm just going to have a bit of fun with this paint, but we've got a lot of colour up the centre of the tree, so I'm just going to set off with some gamboge. The good thing about having a nice sable brush, even though it's only a small brush, you can see it holds a lot of paint, you don't have to keep reapplying paint. Now, so the first thing I think, if I look across the paper, it looks very wet. However, it's not flying out, you know, the colour is just sitting where I've put it, so that's quite nice. You can have your paper nice and wet, but still sort of maintain some control. You know, if you'd done that on a hot pressed paper, it would have moved a lot more by now. So we've got a lot of water on there. So when you're doing branch shapes, flick your brush, and as you go towards the end of the branch, lift your brush so that you're getting some thinning shapes and some, you know, some, what's the word I'm looking for, tapering. And when you're drawing a tree, all the branches don't just go like a child would draw it, like I've drawn it a bit, going that way. Don't forget, some are going back, some are coming forward, so you might want to bring some shapes like as if they're coming down, some as if they're going up and around, you know, they're all twisted. Don't have them all going in one direction necessarily, so look carefully at the tree. And you can see I'm not necessarily just following the line of the pencil, I'm just adding extras as well. Pretty much covered the whole thing in gamboge on some of the ground as well, because I think this picture must have been, well, it's not autumn because there's no leaf, but it must be sort of a nice sunny wintry day, and we've got some reddy yellow colours on the ground, whether there's still some leaves from autumn on the ground there. Quite an atmospheric sky as well, there's lots of pink in the sky behind. So add some green to that now. So there's a lot of moss growing on the bark. So again, it's really not moving into the other paint much, which makes it very easy to paint. Then again, you might not have some of the more expressive wet in wet, what's the word I'm looking for, results, you know, that you want, those what we call happy accidents, because it's not, you know, you can see the green and the yellow quite separately still, can't you? Even though that paper is still very, very wet. Haven't gone far enough across this side, have we really? Again, look how loosely I'm holding the brush. Because you're holding it loosely, it twists and turns. And if you get little gaps, it's quite good as well, because that makes it look like there's a little bit of light shining on the tree. So I'm going to try and keep some of that, you'll see if you've got the photo, I'll put the photo up in the corner of the video actually, but you will see in the centre, right down the centre, it's very, very yellow where the light's shining on it, so we'll leave that gamboge showing quite a bit there. Again, I'm just doing an impression of this tree really, I'm not trying to get a complete copy of this photograph. And some of these branches aren't necessarily all from this one tree actually, I think some of them are from its neighbours as well behind. And be careful you don't overdo it and completely lose that sky behind as well, because we could come back later and put some colour on the sky as well, maybe. So in this central part there's quite a lot of orangey, you know, although, as well as really quite reddy. It's just the way the light's shining on the bark. And just pick out one or two going up. And if you look at the photograph, you can see one or two of these branches, the orangey colours, sort of flame-like colours almost, go quite a way up into the tree. And a lot on the ground. So the nice thing is we've not had to re-wet this paper at all. We might have had to do by now with the one I usually use, but it's staying very wet. So it's making it actually really quite enjoyable way to paint. Now these have spread out a little bit more, so you might want to just sharpen off some of these edges of the trunk. And again, you don't want to lose that light down the centre, so if it's spreading out too much, you might just want to take it off with a dry brush. So can you see what I'm doing there? As I'm to one side, I'm squeezing out the brush so it's dry, and then just lifting off some of that colour in the centre there. A bit more yellow back in. Okay, now some of the brown. So with each colour that we're adding, we're sort of building up the form a bit more. Get a bit more depth to this tree. So I'm going to look where it's darkest and put some of the burnt sienna straight from the pan onto some of these darker areas, and starting, my brush is a bit wet there, need to get it a bit thicker, less water. That's better. So just got one or two of the sides of some of these branches where you can see that they've got a shadow up the side of the branch, and we might need to come back later and make it even darker. So just keep looking back at the photograph now, see where these grooves are in the trunk, where the shadows are on the underside of some of the branches. But again, don't get stuck in it being just exactly the same place as the photograph, otherwise you'd be there all day. So you can see it's very thick, this paint, more or less straight from the pan, it's really nice and thick. When I first started putting the paint on, I was saying about it not moving very much. It has actually carried on moving into each other a little bit more as it's dried, and we've got some really lovely colours coming from that, with them all mixing together. Of course, because now it's starting to dry a little bit, this isn't moving as much, and so we can get a bit more definition and detailing. So if you did at this point want to leave it to dry and then come back and put some more shadows and detailing, you might want to do that also, but I'm going to just carry on doing the whole thing wet in wet. I'm just wondering really now whether to stick to these same four colours or whether to introduce any more dark colours to it. So I've just put some of this green on top of some of these other areas of shadow. It's going to go even darker. It's also giving some of those shapes of the bark. If you look at the picture, there's an awful lot of detail. I'm not going to get all that in today. I haven't got the time to be doing all those lines, but it'd be a nice drawing exercise to try and emulate some of that really. So again, just still thinking about whether to go darker or not, and I think I will, and I think I'll do that with some, let me think, some of the burnt umber to begin with, and mix the colours on the paper. So if we go over the top of these dark areas with some burnt umber, that's just going to make it even darker tone where those shadows are. I don't know if you can hear the wind outside. It's rocking the studio around, it's so windy. You can hear the trees on the studio roof. So I don't think I'm going to do too much more to that today. Like I say, it was just to try out this paper and see how we got on with it. I think I'll just put a little bit more gamboge in, just to brighten the whole thing up. You could go on forever with these branches, and the detail in this bark's just beautiful. So you see, the thing about gamboge, when you put it in neat, it sort of pushes the other colours out of the way and really adds some brightness. You'll see that as it moves. So if you wanted, when you were doing a tree and you wanted to get some light back up one side of a branch, say a branch here, just go right up the side with that gamboge and it really lights it up. So we'll do that again along here. See what I mean? Even if you're going over the other colours, it really adds some light and some sunshine to a picture. And I'm just thinking now, some sort of working this out as I go along and just having a play really. Just thinking it'd be nice to have a little touch of that sky in. It would give some contrast to the whole thing. But it's sort of a pinky colour, so I think what I would do is get some of that colour that we had earlier and add some more water to it. Some of the, it was cadmium orange with plenty of water. I'm just going to add that, so we've got, as if we've got sort of a pinky sky behind. So very, very lightly, we're not doing anything detailed, but I think that's just worked quite nicely. Give us an impression of a sky behind. A little bit heavy there, so just damp brush and just, but again that will dry quite lightly. Okay, so you could go on, you could leave it to dry and go even darker in areas to make the light shine out, because I mean the thing that attracted me to this really was the way this light was on the front of the tree. So if you go get some contrast in and go really dark with your darks, like we've got this shadow up here, then that's going to make that light shine out even more. If you look at it very carefully now, because it's very, very wet, you can see the paper's swollen now. We should have perhaps taped it at the side as well, but it'll be fine, it'll go flat once it's dry. What I'll do is, when it's dried, I'll take some pictures of them and put them at the end of the video. But can you see how it's making some lovely shapes where this gamboge is going into the other colours here? It's because the gamboge sort of pushes the other colours out of the way. And actually that would be nice if it came a little bit further down the trunk, so I'm just going to pull some of that colour down the trunk there whilst it's wet. So if you sit and look at your watercolours, if you're working very, very, very wet in wet, you get to this stage, you might just want to sit back and with a dry brush here and there just tidy things up a little bit or alter things a little bit, because things move as they're drying. So see this little bit here, you probably don't want that there. So if you just sit back and be very patient and watch where you might want to just tidy things up and alter things as it's drying. Okay, so I hope you found that useful today. Like I say, I'll put the link to that picture because I think it's absolutely beautiful. You could try it in, just drawing it would be nice. You could try it in ink with just a dash of, do a drawing in ink and then put a dash of watercolour on the top. You could, you know, in any medium, it's absolutely beautiful photograph, but just one that I thought would be nice to have a first go in this new pad. So I'll try and find the link to the pad as well and put that in down below, and I'd certainly look forward to using it again. Like I say, it's just nice to work wet in wet and not have to keep wetting your paper again. It clearly holds plenty of water, so, and it makes some lovely lines. Actually, whilst it's still wet, I'll just show you something else. One moment. Just over here somewhere. I've got a pot full of pens that I can never find. Right, it's there. Yeah, whilst that's wet in wet, one little technique you could use with a tree is if you've got something like a plastic spatula, or you could use the corner of a old credit card or something like that. if you want to, again, if you want to get some light back, or if you want to get some extra sort of shapes of branches in, you can always just scrape out some paint. I think this will work well on this one. Put some extra light, and as well as making some light, it also makes, where you push the paint to one side, it also makes some darker shapes as well. You can overdo it and have fun with it, but you get the idea. But it needs to be done when it's not too wet, but when it's still wet enough to be able to push the paint out of the way. We'll just do some shapes of the roots at the bottom as well. Okay, so that's just one simple, easy little tip to use. So thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed that, if you want to put it in the comments below and let me know what you think and what other videos you might like me to do in the future on this pad, if there's any particular subjects you want me to try. I'm going to come back and try it with Brusho. I think that would be good to have a go with Brusho on this new pad as well. Okay, so thank you very much for watching, and bye for now.